Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Manxiety Podcast.
We're your hosts, Ashad and Matt. Before we get started, if you're enjoying this show, please subscribe so you can get notified of new episodes.
If you want to share this with your friends, you can find us on all podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
This week, we'll be talking about falling back. Not talking about falling on your ass. What were you going to say?
Or springing forward.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to be talking about one of those things. But it does have to do with daylight savings. That dirty daylight savings, which does us all dirty all the time. Now, I don't know about you, Matt, but every single year, time comes to change the clocks, and my whole maybe like 2 weeks is ruined.
You do know that the phrase is fall back, spring forward, right? Like, I didn't just say that randomly.
Oh, yes, of course I do.
Oh, okay. the way you looked at me, I was like, am I an idiot? I was like, I had to Google if that was actually the phrase.
No, I totally knew. I just said we're talking about falling back, not springing forward. Because I feel like usually when I spring forward, it's fine. I don't have a problem.
Interesting. Because physiologically, you should have a problem for spring forward because you lose an hour. So there's like data, I don't want to misquote it, but there's data that says that like more heart attacks happen that day than like any other day, or like more car crashes happen that day.
Sorry, you're right. I'm mixing it up. You're completely right. I have an easier time falling back than I do springing forward. But
because you get an extra hour, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But no, that's definitely a thing. People get more stressed when the times change, right? They get there are more heart attacks. I should really pull up these statistics so I can tell everyone.
Just believe me. I know a guy on the internet who said it.
Let me see. Yeah, it's associated with cardiovascular morbidity, so dying from heart-related stuff. Let's see, what else is it associated with? It can mess up your schedule, right? Your sleep schedule, because now you're either, sleeping earlier or sleeping later than you used to, one or the other, and it's harder to fall asleep and harder to wake up, which can obviously lead to less sleep. Sleep is very important. It's one of the meds, so you need to make sure you're getting enough of it. And if you're not, then it can start impacting your anxiety, making you feel more anxious. What else is there? And because of it, most people that maybe you don't commute anymore, that used to commute, less sleep can lead to, more car accidents because you're not as focused. It can lead to, if you operate heavy machinery, which I always thought was operating cranes and shit, but I recently found out that heavy machinery is just like driving a car too.
Same thing. I literally always think of a forklift.
Same here. Or a crane, or like, fucking a bulldozer or something, not driving my car.
Right. They really need to change the verbiage. It should be driving a car.
Motor vehicles or something. Yeah. Or any motorized, whatever. Anyway, this episode is not about operating more heavy machinery. It's about daylight savings. But yeah. Anyway, it can lead to cardiovascular morbidity, like I said, higher risks of heart attacks and strokes. Usually, there's an increase in hospital admissions for irregular heartbeats. So, yeah, it's it really messes us up. And the history of daylight savings, right? This was like back then when everyone used to be a farmer. They used to change the clock so that everyone would get more daylight, in the mornings so that they can get more stuff done. But very few people farm now. And like if they do farm, that's fine. Maybe those states that have a high percentage of farmers can continue doing it or whatever, but for everyone else that has a regular job, it becomes very hard, right? Because, I'm up at 6:30 a.m. every morning for my job. And as soon as that 6:30 now becomes 5:30 or, gets pushed to whatever 7:30, it just completely messes you up because now you're waking up earlier, but you probably still slept at the same time because your body was used to it. It's throwing you off your circadian rhythm and your internal clock, which also is regulated by light, right? Like by the sun coming up. So now that sort of the time of that has changed, your body's changed. Like, I don't know. It completely messes you up. It messes me up. But there are also studies that show it also messes other people up. And there is a bill out there now to stop following daylight savings. I don't know. Is that federal, Matt? Do you know, or is it just California?
It might be just California because, like in Arizona, they don't follow it. But it does,
and I think Hawaii doesn't follow it either.
Maybe it gets confusing sometimes because like I have a coworker who's in Arizona. And he's like, yeah, so our, 4 p.m. meeting we were going to have is actually 5 now, so I can't do it. I'm like, oh, okay, shit. Like, because we changed, but he didn't.
Yep.
So, like, it's just a weird thing where it's like, it's almost like you're not all moving on Earth at the same time. It's like somebody's in a different, it's just, time zones in general are a little bit weird. How, like, you can walk 10 feet and be in a different time zone. It's like, okay. In certain cities. But, yeah, man, I hate it because... Have you ever tried to change an oven clock?
Yeah.
It's
easy.
Terrible. No, it's terrible. or your
I know a lot
clock.
of people that think it's terrible, but all of those are super easy for me, so it never bothers me.
I know that actually doing it isn't that bad. Now, in my kitchen, I have 2 ovens, a microwave, and a toaster oven. It's fucking impossible to get them all to sync up. Okay? Like, I'm not going to do it by the second. I'm not going to do whatever. So I, like, change one, change the other. They're always one off. They're always whatever. One's always an hour behind, an hour ahead. It's a nightmare. Like, it'll be the same in my car for, like, 6 months. And then once it corrects itself, I'll be like, oh, shit, the time is right. It's just terrible. Okay?
Yeah. No, I agree. It does kind of suck if you have a lot of clocks. Like, we have a couple of, like, small clocks around the house, too. And even, like you said, like the oven clock, like the first like couple days, like I was just running around doing stuff, and like I'd be in the kitchen, I would look at the clock, and I'm like, holy shit, I missed the meeting, or like, oh no, I missed this or missed that, or why is it so late already? I thought I just had lunch, But then I fixed them, but like last night there was this we have this small clock like sitting in our around our TV and the shelf. And I was sitting there watching TV, and it said it was like 12 a.m. I'm like, holy shit. I didn't realize that I was up that late. Like, we got home at like 9 or something, so I'm like, I can't have been watching TV for 3 hours. That's nuts. So I would look at my clock, I'm like, oh, I just forgot to change that one. Stupid me. So then I actually paused it, got up and changed it so that it wouldn't happen again, but kind of freaks you out.
That's the right way to do it. If it did not auto change on our phones and our computers, I think we'd all be fucked. Because I didn't even know that it was daylight savings. See, the way that I knew is I was watching the UFC fights on Saturday, and I was drinking, and then I woke up and I checked my Whoop band, and it's like, oh, you got like 8 hours of sleep, like you feel rested. I was like, all right, great, I feel rested, right? And I looked at the clock in my room, and I was like, oh, it's like 8:30. Okay, cool. And I didn't realize we got that extra hour. So I was like, wait a minute, I only slept like 6 hours. Like, how the hell am I rested? Like, this thing's wrong. And I was drinking. Like, this is impossible. And then I was like, oh, you got an extra hour, whatever, fine. So I like went that whole day thinking like, oh, sweet, dude, I got that extra hour. And I didn't do this. I should have. I heard this joke online where somebody's like, I had sex with my girlfriend for like an hour and 45 seconds last night. And then they're like, thank you, daylight savings. Because if you time it just right.
That's hilarious.
Actually, wow.
Well, no, this time around it would have been the opposite way. It would have been negative. Because if you started at 2
Yeah.
It would have been 1 o'clock and 45 seconds.
Right, you have to do it in spring.
Yeah.
I feel like, well, my birthday's in spring, so I feel like that's happened to me before. Where like I was like, we're going at it for that long? I was like, oh wait, never mind. Like I need to correct my stats here, you know.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's
But
just
no,
a trippy thing, man. It's like fucking magic. It's just like, all right, time's different. Okay.
Yeah. I know. Who decides that? No one.
It's bullshit. And
Or everyone. Everyone changes it. If no one changed it, then clocks will stay the same.
Well, I mean, you can't be like the fucking maverick that's like, I'm not going to do it. You show up to a Zoom meeting like an hour late for 6 months and then you're finally on time. You know, it's just like, it's not going to work. But mental health wise, I don't know about you, but I would prefer if it was always the spring version where the sun is out later in the day, because it's like 6 p.m. and we'll look outside and I'm like, dude, it's dark as shit right now. Like, what the fuck? And then because it's dark, I naturally want to go to bed earlier.
Yeah.
Because your body's like, oh, it's dark, let's wind down. But also, I feel like I'm just more like depressed.
No, definitely.
Right?
Because like it's 5 p.m., you get off work and it's already getting dark outside or already dark.
Yeah. You're like, I don't really want
Whereas
to
before
do anything.
Yeah, before I would get off work and it's like, oh, there's still some light out, take the dog for a walk or like go out and do some yard work or something. So yeah.
Well, I'm gonna work an hour early. I'm gonna work an hour early and get off an hour earlier. Fuck you, daylight savings.
That's bullshit. You're not gonna do that.
I'll do it for 3 days and then I'll quit. You're right.
That's funny. I did wake up early though the other day and I did start work earlier. But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully my body will get used to it soon. Because it is not fun.
Yeah, speaking of what you said about the sun and adjusting to it, right? It's the same thing when you're like jet lagged. You need to like start seeing bright light early in the morning. Like if anybody follows Dr. Andrew Huberman on his podcast, the Huberman Lab, like that's where he'll talk about a lot of the stuff about getting light early, and I try to always do that. But that's what I'm trying to fix right now too, is like, should I actually be waking up earlier to like get up with the sun and then go to bed earlier? That way that I'm like getting that natural sunlight in the morning, and then being able to like rise with it. Like maybe I'm up earlier, but that might be better for me just to be like, oh, like let me work out in the morning or whatever instead of at night when it's kind of like really dark. So I'm not sure. I haven't figured it out, but yeah, dude, it was nice to get the extra hour, but when you lose an hour, man, does that suck?
Yeah. I mean, when I was hunting this weekend, that's basically what we were doing, right? We couldn't have campfires, so we couldn't even, sit around a campfire after dark. It got dark around like 6 the first night, and then, well, the first 2 nights, because after daylight savings, we weren't there anymore. But like after that, there wasn't much to do. I mean, like we had some lights on, we hung around, chilled, had some food, had some beers, whiskey, but it was like 8, 9 o'clock, and it's like pitch black outside. Your body's starting to feel like tired because of that. Then you just go to bed, and then in the morning you wake up. Well, we were waking up before the sun, but like you would wake up and the sun would start coming out, and like slowly you would wake. Your body would get more and more awake as the sun was out, and felt amazing. I mean, it would be cool to do that, but it's not very realistic because the core of the day, right? That like the sun is out, you're unfortunately working, and if you work an office job, you're working indoors, and so you don't get any sun, and then you have other stuff to do that you do after work when there's no sun out. So like now you're like your body's saying, hey, I need to go to sleep because the sun, it's dark, but you're like, no, I got shit to take care of. So yeah, it's bad all over. And other than, what we talked about, it's also, there's increased risks of depression, obesity, cancer. There's just a lot of bad things with changing, especially because we change it twice a year, right? And I don't think there's really any other way we could have done it.
Yeah,
No.
I'm glad we didn't do it quarterly. Right?
Yeah, that would suck. But one way that people say can help lessen the impact of it is if you slowly, incrementally change it, right? Maybe like a week or two before fall back or spring forward or whatever. You start going to bed 15 minutes earlier, right, and waking up 15 minutes earlier if you're going to fall back, or and then, a couple days later you do it 30 minutes earlier and 30 minutes earlier and then 45, and that way you at least work your way up to it instead of, bam, overnight it's just like 1 hour is gone.
Yeah, it can be pretty jarring overall because it is just such a big shift, right? And like for me, yeah, cool. I was thankful I got the extra hour, and I was like, cool, I'm refreshed. But I would have just slept in another hour regardless. Like I still slept my like 8 hours, right? Because what happened for me was I went to bed late, so I went to bed at like 1, woke up at like 9. Right, I got my 8 hours in, right? Now obviously, technically, it was 7 hours because the time shifted, right? But I still got my 8. But like when you're losing the hour, you kind of need to plan to make it up, like go to bed an hour early. But then it's tough because you're like, well, I'm not tired right now because I'm not used to this. So like Ashad said, if you can kind of increment yourself into it, because it's not worth the amount of negative stuff. And I think that's why a lot of people now are talking about it, that they've done these studies and they're like, hey, like it's not good for you. Plus, less sun, right, when it's dark early, less vitamin D, which also contributes to more depression symptoms as well, right, which could also be kind of another reason for that. And also the whole like, it's late, I don't want to see my friends, I guess I'll just go to bed, right? And then you're just watching Netflix, then you go to bed and you're tired, you're not active, right? It's this whole cycle that is really interesting because I know people who, if they don't get sunlight during the day, they start to feel not like depressed, but they just kind of feel down. And it could be that their vitamin D level hinges so much on that, but it's also like they want to be out and be social and get energy from it, right? Like when you see the sun, your body should stop producing cortisol, which is what will wake you up. But then that's also what it's going to, it's not cortisol. It would be melatonin. Yeah, melatonin. And then like your melatonin production will creep up X amount of hours later, which is why you start to feel tired later in the day. And then it's like all these things are built into it, and nature's just fucking beautiful, right? The amount of like systems and microsystems and macro systems that all come into play here, and we're the dummies as humans that are like, we should change the time. Like, would that be great? It's like, I understand it was for maybe a good reason in the past, but let's not let the past dictate our future here, ladies and gentlemen. We can be better than this, right? We can grow as people. Sometimes, I don't know. So if I keep thinking there's like hope for the human race, and then there's things where I'm just like, maybe not so much. But this is one issue that I think we should definitely tackle because it does have implications on our mental health as well as our physical health, and those are so fucking important, as we've seen, because of shit like COVID and lockdowns and everything else, where you're away from people, and now you're not getting the sun, and now you're worried about this, and it's just like, damn, Earth, can we just get a win?
I didn't know you were so passionate about all this, Matt. We should have talked about daylight savings before.
I hate it. As soon as you said you want to talk about it, I was like, in my head, I was like, just don't go off on a rant. And sure enough, I've done a little mini rant.
Yeah, you stepped on your soapbox, and it's all good. No, it's good being passionate about things, but I completely agree. The thing that sucks though is a lot of people are saying that they want to stick to the time now, I think.
Fuck them.
No, sorry. The other
it's
time.
Spring. Yeah, spring. Yeah, where
right.
it gets light around like 7:38ish or 7 to 8 a.m. and then it gets dark like 7 to 8ish, I think. Right, it should be about 12 hours. I know like it shifts based on our fucking distance from the sun or whatever. That's why like it gets because what happens is it gets really dark during winter because that's the shortest day of the year. Like the solstice is always in like December, right?
The winter solstice, yeah.
Yeah, it's in December. Yeah, so
it's
like
the shortest day of the year.
That should be the shortest day of the year, partially by the fact that we have shifted daylight savings. So we're forcing it to get dark earlier, and then the distance from the sun and all this other shit that smarter people have figured out leads it to be that way. So like I think that's also part of it is like it's not just you thinking like, oh my god, is it dark this early? It actually is because we shift an hour, plus it's naturally getting darker earlier. Yep. So like that combination of things leads to like a lot of shit. And I get it, everybody at home. You love your fucking Christmas lights. You love your Halloween decorations. You want them to be out as quick as you can, right? You're like, hey, I'm going to light up the fucking streets. Do not give a shit about you. Let's go to the spring version where it is more sun during the day. And if you're like me, where you used to work out in the mornings at 6 a.m. and during right now it would be pitch black when you get up, sucks to be you. It sucks to be me then. Deal with it. It's okay.
Yeah. Interestingly, though, I'm reading an article, and I guess they don't recommend permanent daylight savings time, which is the spring version.
Why?
According to this article, studies have shown that residing on the most western border of time zones, which is similar to being on daylight savings time, is associated with increased risks for cancer. Rather, permanent standard time is the optimal solution. But I think that's maybe because people are spending more time outside.
Yeah, is it just skin cancer?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And like, I mean, as long as you protect yourself, I think.
Who wrote this article?
fine.
I'm going to cancel him.
You should for sure.
No, I mean, I think that we should have a discussion about it. Obviously, the issue becomes if everybody's split 50-50, then it's not going to work, right? But hey, 51%, I think we can get the votes, everybody. Like, vote my way, right? And we'll do it.
No, I do agree with that, though. I would definitely want to stick to the spring schedule because that one makes me feel the best. Going back to what you were saying earlier, though, you know how you said you're happy that it's not quarterly. I feel like if it was quarterly, it might be a little bit better. Like, think about changing it half an hour every quarter.
Okay, so let's do 5 minutes every month. Let's do 5 minutes every month and fuck up my oven clock for eternity.
No, then you would just need internet connected oven clock, so everything just changes together.
And then Internet of Things, then somebody's hacking into my oven and turning it on. Okay, I know how this ends. It ends in there was a Terminator movie about this. That's
hilarious. But some tips to help manage the transition from daylight savings. Like we said, doing the gradual shift, right? Going to bed a little bit earlier, 15 minutes earlier, waking up 15 minutes earlier before daylight savings time changes. That way, when it comes, you're kind of used to it. Maybe trying to stick to your sleep schedule. If you don't have a job that you need to be there every morning at the same time, maybe you just, you continue doing what you were doing. If you were sleeping at 11 o'clock before and waking up at 7 a.m., now you're sleeping at 10 and waking up at 6. So your sleep schedule is the same, but the hours have changed. Maintaining good sleep hygiene. So similar, but going to bed at the same time every day, not browsing your phone or going on social media, avoiding caffeine and alcohol, not exercising before bed. All of those things help. And similar to what you were saying about the melatonin and blue light, it's been proven that being on your phone makes your body feel less tired because of the blue light that's coming in, which messes with your body's natural rhythm. So maybe you use, and I think we've talked about these apps before, maybe you use Flux for your computer, which slowly removes the blue light from your screen as the day goes by or as night approaches. Or if you have an iOS device, maybe Android has this too, but iOS devices, you can turn on time shift, or night shift or whatever it's called, where your screen will slowly, get rid of blue light over time as well. So that way at nights, you're not getting as much blue light and you're able to naturally, your body is able to, get tired and go to sleep. Getting out in the sun, trying to get out whenever you can, of course, maybe during a break during work, trying to go and get some sun, maybe during lunch, because the time has changed and now you're not going to get sun after work, trying to squeeze those in before, or even, maybe changing the position in your room so that the sun comes into your room and you're near it. Something I've noticed that I do recently is every morning I actually open up my my blinds and I just let natural light come in. And I keep it like that pretty much all day long. And then sort of towards, I guess, 2 o'clock now, the sun starts setting on that side of the room where my room is. And so the sun is in the house. I mean, sometimes it's annoying because it goes straight on the screen, so I got to close those blinds. But I have like 3 separate windows, so I always open the other one so I get some sun coming in. And then finally, limiting caffeine intake. Just because you're getting up earlier or, whatever, just because time has changed doesn't mean you should be drinking more coffee to compensate, because that is going to just make it worse. So yeah, there's different strategies you can use to counteract the negative stuff. But the best strategy to use is to reach out to your legislator, tell them that you do not want daylight savings anymore, and make sure they vote the right way.
Yeah, one thing I also saw that was interesting was this pic online, and it's like, it was a dog, and it's like, yeah, I get that daylight savings time has changed for you, but it hasn't changed for me. So if you're starting to notice that your pets are like, what are you bugging me for right now? Like, it's not dinner time. Like, they think it is dinner time because they are on their internal clocks. They don't understand our bullshit human systems.
Yeah, they can't read clocks, as far as we know.
Right? Otherwise, they should be setting it back for me or setting the goddamn time on the oven. I know I keep talking about the oven time, but seriously, guys, it's going to be the same downstairs in my fucking oven and microwave and shit for like 3 months. I'm going to forget. And I do have...
You know what you got to do, Matt?
I
You
have
just
a
got
little
to
mini heart attack like
You just got to cover those clocks. That's too many. So lucky for me, I only have... My oven has a clock, and then my microwave has one. But for the microwave, I usually put my energy saving or whatever on, so it doesn't show the clock ever. So I only ever have one clock showing, which is my oven clock.
Okay, all right. Let's take it a step further. Maybe I go live out in the woods, like wake up naturally, get away from society for a few months, maybe a few years, who knows, I maybe just have a flip phone for people to call me for emergencies and just check in. Yeah, I think I'll...
And starting today, the Anxiety Podcast will only have one host for the foreseeable future.
It's just me calling on like some really shitty satellite audio phone. Excuse me, what did you say? What? Yeah, I mean, obviously we live in a super hyper-paced, hyper-digital world, right? But definitely do try to take those steps for yourself when these types of events are coming up. If you remember, we totally forgot that it was daylight savings because we don't keep track of it, our phones do. But yeah, just like try to reconnect more with nature, get back to your roots, understand yourself and your cycles. If you are feeling... more depressed or anything because of the lack of sun. Like, this happens a lot with people that move up into the Pacific Northwest, where they move from like sunny California to rainy Seattle or rainy Oregon, and they get less sun overall. Their vitamin D's level go down, and that affects your mental and physical health. So please, if you're feeling any of those symptoms, maybe go get a blood test or whatever, depending on where you're at. Check in with yourself, and then of course, try to make those little adjustments where you can, so that you know better for next time. And hopefully you get rich enough doing whatever you're doing to where you just pay somebody to change your oven clocks and you don't have to do it yourself. Or maybe you can just get really good at persuasion and convince your roommates to do it when they're home.
One last point before we end this episode. The other thing that sucks about changing time now is there's already something called seasonal affective disorder. And this sort of like accelerates that, right? For a lot of people, when the seasons change, they do start feeling, it's a type of depression, and it has to do with sunlight. They start feeling more depressed. They start feeling more anxious. More mental health issues start cropping up because they're getting less sun. And now with the time change, you're getting, and that happens naturally, right? Because the days get shorter, and so we just get less sun naturally. But now with the time change, we're also getting less time to be able to be out in the sun, because if you work a 9 to 5, you're, working during those hours. So unfortunately, those two together just, compound and make it even worse.
Yep. Vote springtime when it happens. Call your legislator. Send them an email. Don't direct them our way unless they're a listener. Be happy to have them, but I don't want angry hate mail from our representatives being like, who the fuck are you to tell me to change daylight savings? Like, listen up, pal. And then just send them a clip of me going on a rant there for a little bit.
Yep, this is a call to action for all of you listeners. All right. Well, thank you all again for listening. Everyone stay safe, stay healthy. We hope that the daylight savings and seasonal affective disorder doesn't affect you all too much. And if it does, don't forget to take your meds. Go back and listen to our other episodes. We have plenty of advice for all of it. We will talk to you guys on Thursday.